Det finns oerhört mycket som samhället kan göra för att underlätta invandrarnas situation.
Den typiska svenska jobbaren som fått se sin trappuppgång förvandlas bara på några år. Det spelade ingen roll vad han tyckte. Politikerna brydde sig i alla fall inte om vad han sa.
Decemberöverenskommelsen.
Där den största flyktingkatastrofen just nu utspelar sig.
Ska vi fira januariavtalet?
Vi kommer att segra och då kommer vi att driva ut lögnarna ur lögnens tempel!
Hello, this is Chris presenting you with a US post-election special with the tentative title Copium Wars. And I'm not alone. I'm joined by two distinguished Americans. We have Mike Enoch, host of the podcast Tedious and chairman of the National Justice Party. Welcome, Mike.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks a lot.
Thank you. And we also have Murphy, who is a writer. Welcome, Murphy. Yeah, he's here somewhere. He's gonna,
Thanks for having me.
Unmute your mic. That's a good first lesson to take into account. So here's the thing. The I Hate Racism More contest is essentially over, and I'm in before in court battles. So the question is it time to retire Piss Earth 2030 and say hello to neoliberal Hellworld 2020? Mike, tell us what's going on.
Well, yeah. First of all, the election is all but over. I was actually saying this a few days ago, and I even said a couple days ago, I know there will be legal battles. I don't expect them to. I don't expect them to pan out for Trump, and they may take a little while to work everything through the system. And of course, the vote hasn't been certified. And that's all going to take time. But typically, the president is chosen by the media. People are getting mad about that. And I'm seeing a lot of people saying, oh, the media doesn't choose the president. I'm like, yeah, but they do. Like, they really do. Like, that's totally wrong. The media does choose the president. And they decided, I think the signal that was sent yesterday afternoon when Biden was announced by all the major media outlets is that the elite, the people in control of this system have made the decision. This is over. We are putting this to bed. Whatever Trump legal challenges are left percolating through the courts are going to, in my opinion, die on the vine. They won't be covered by the media. They will slowly just get moved on. Trump is already set up to lose those, and I believe Trump's fight for this election is going to be like his fight for anything except for Israel, which he doesn't need to fight for Israel. He just gets what he wants. It will be like his fight for anything where it's a big show and nothing happens. He doesn't actually do anything. Just like his presidency, he's going to yell and then not do anything. And in the process of yelling and not doing anything, he's going to grift a whole lot of people. And so Biden is going to be president. The elite has decided, the system, the wheels are in motion. They are moving things forward. And the Biden campaign has said, if this guy doesn't leave the Oval Office in January, we'll just have him evicted as a trespasser. So, and the people, whoever they assign to do that, the Secret Service or whatever, the DC Federal Police or whatever, would do it. But I think Trump will go quietly after a couple of weeks. Basically, this Stop the Steal thing they've got going on is a way for the alt-right, the Trump MAGA-peed media commentators to line their pockets one more time before the party's over. And that's what it is. It's very pathetic. And I've been telling Americans, like, listen, we all know that there was fraud in this election. I mean, they set it up to be fraudulent. The mail-in balloting is inherently fraudulent. It just leaves the door open for fraud. And then when you say you can vote early, you can vote late, you can send in ballots, and we'll just be counting ballots for like an entire week. It's just, you really think they didn't pad that result? Of course they did.
You're talking about the riggers?
Yeah, the riggers. There's all these riggers in Philadelphia and riggers in Atlanta and riggers in where else were they rigging?
I mean,
Philadelphia and Atlanta, riggers in Detroit. We got riggers all over the place, and
Arizona.
big rigger problem.
Democrat riggers, yeah.
Well, the funny thing is, Trump was like, stop the count in Michigan, Atlanta, and Philadelphia, but keep the count going in Arizona.
Oh yeah, did you see the video where they were contrasting?
What are you doing?
Yeah,
which video?
There was a video contrasting a Trump crowd in Arizona chanting keep the count. And then at the other end, there was a video from wherever, like Pennsylvania or something.
Yeah.
And there was a similar crowd chanting, stop the count.
So right there, you have a problem, right? You have a problem when that's your narrative. But it's also like, it doesn't even matter. It's over. Biden is going to be president. They've decided, the establishment's decided. And I was like, once we got past election day, I was saying, like, they're going to give it to Biden because it's clear that that's what the elite wants. It's clear that's what the media wants. It's clear that's what the oligarchy wants. Big tech wants it.
The whole world,
and so,
to be honest.
Yeah, but yeah, like elites in other countries wanted it too. And even a lot of people in other countries were probably fooled into thinking that they wanted it. And Israel doesn't mind. I mean, Benjamin Netanyahu comes out yesterday. Congratulations to Joe Biden. We've had a great relationship for 40 years and we expect great things from you. And he's not wrong. He's going to get everything he wants. And nothing that Trump did is going to get rolled back. Like, there's no liberals coming in to tell the right wing in Israel, like the extreme Zionist wing in Israel, to chill out, to dial it back, to give back some land to the Palestinians, or maybe none of that's going to happen. They're going to get everything they want. Biden's just going to continue it. As we said, you know how Donald Trump's daughter is married to the Jew Jared Kushner and has children with him. All of Biden's surviving children, because he has children that have died, all of his surviving children are married to Jews. And Kamala Harris's husband is Jewish. So they are well represented in this White House as well. So it's going to be really policy-wise more of the same. It's just the tone is going to be different. Policies aren't going to be much different.
Can you explain the optic kikes and the Jignet dichotomy?
Well,
people who
it's basically an internal dispute in the Jewish community, and it's not absolute, right? Like, there are many people that cross the aisle between those two things, and there's basically the Netanyahu faction versus like the who was the other guy, Benny Gantz, who was the one that lost to Netanyahu in their recent election. Basically, labor versus Likud, liberal versus conservative, if you will. It's sort of extreme nationalists, the Jews that are like, we want to genocide Arabs, we want to take as much land as we can, we want to just go out. And then there's others who are like, we have to be kind of more controlled and optical about this. We have a lot of other concerns. And I would say the extreme Zionist nationalists had a very good relationship with Donald Trump. They got him to do whatever they wanted. And they don't really care if Donald Trump stokes up things like white feelings in America, racial feelings among whites in America, talks about immigration. They don't care. But the more, if you will, the optics kikes, if you will, for lack of a better term, the kind of people that run like the New York Times and CNN, they've been in power longer. They're a little bit more level-headed about this, and they want to keep things on an even keel. And they also worry very much about America. Because in America, Jews are like 70% vote for Democrats, but in Israel, the Jews love Donald Trump. So there's even a distinction between the kinds of Jews that live in Israel and the kinds that live in America, where they're much more liberal. And in America, they want to make sure, and the reason they're like that in America is because they're an extreme minority, right? They're a very tiny minority here, and they have all the power, and they don't want people to know that, and they don't want people to resent it. And the biggest obstacle, the biggest challenge to them would be the white population and those whites who become aware of their power and want to take it away from them. The only group that could challenge them and compete with them for power in this country would be whites. I mean, it's not even blacks. There are a lot of blacks that maybe they know, you have like Ice Cube saying the things he said, but they don't have any ability to organize. So it doesn't really matter, right? The only group that can challenge them is whites. So these Jews over here are very, very concerned with keeping whites under control. And that's why they didn't like Donald Trump, because they're like, you just went too far in giving whites some kind of hope, some kind of idea of their own collectivity, their own the awareness of their own idea, and showed also that it's possible to win, because a lot of whites that are pro-white in America just were hopeless. It's hopeless. Everybody's liberal. There's no winning for these points of view that I have. And then Donald Trump came and he won an election by appealing to racial sentiments. And that made people aware, like, holy crap, there's millions of other people that think the same way. Another reason they wanted some kind of decisive smackdown of him in America, because it's like, we don't want these whites understanding that there are other people like them out there. We don't want them forming communities. And And that's kind of the distinction there. But the Benjamin Netanyahu types, they don't care. They just want to take Arab land. And these two work in concert. So now that they've gotten all these gains in Israel, they've gotten all these embassies moved to Jerusalem. They've gotten a statement from the United States that what were once considered illegal settlements in the West Bank, Gaza Strip, are now legal. The United States isn't going to say they're illegal anymore. Joe Biden's not going to roll any of that back. So all of the gains that they've made are just going to stay in place. And now they're just going to be shored up, and they're going to be given credibility internationally by a Joe Biden figure who is going to be presented as this much more even-handed, popular, moderate guy who anybody can work with. All countries will respect him. So he's just going to give everything legitimacy that was done. And Donald Trump is just going to exit stage, whatever stage side he's exiting, and that'll be that.
Here's an interesting thing. I listened to his and Biden's and Kamala's speech like yesterday or something. And they both mentioned white people as an interest group, which, if I'm correct, Donald Trump never did during his 5 years. I'm saying 5 years because I'm counting when his campaign launched in the summer of 2015. Do you think this means something? Is the division going to heal now that you have a president that represents all people? Do you think
No.
Do you think there's some interesting policy around like healthcare for all and benefits that white people could take advantage of, or do you think this is just the calm before the storm when it comes to the?
No, he's just saying that. Yeah. I don't think there's going to be a storm though. Like it's just going to be the same. Like here's the thing. I was reading today that like Joe Biden plans a whole bunch of executive orders as soon as he takes office to undo Donald Trump's policies. I'm like what? Which policies? What is he going to? There's nothing to undo. Here's what I think he'll undo. He might dismantle the border wall, the parts of the border wall that Trump did build. Of course, the border wall itself was a scam. Now, I see the whole thing as a scam. Trump bought this steel from the Jewish Russian oligarch Roman Abramovich, made him millions, if not billions, of dollars on buying all that steel. They built ineffectual steel poles, like steel bollard fencing, which one is easily scalable by anybody, who's decently athletic. Two, can be easily cut through silently with a welding torch, or other various kinds of metal saws can cut through it too. And and also drugs can be passed in between the slats. There was ample room to put your arm through the hole, so drugs could just be passed through. And so, the wall was not ineffectual, and it was they only got like 200. They got somewhere between 200 and 500 miles. I don't want to say exactly because I'm not sure.
I read 70, but okay.
They started to do it in the final year. They started to build more of it, and the media kind of kept it quiet because it was ineffectual. It didn't matter. First of all, if you're not covering the whole area where people can cross on land, you're not covering it. And it was designed to be ineffectual. And it was also, some of it was falling down because the foundations of it weren't properly set in like shifting sands and things like that. So the wall it didn't stop anybody. And also, Trump deported fewer illegal immigrants than Barack Obama. Like the doors were wide open for illegal immigration. The doors were wide open during the Trump presidency. And the media kept up this pretense that something was being done because he had created this atmosphere. He hadn't. Once the Mexicans and the South Americans migrants got the message that Trump isn't going to be actually enforcing the border, they started coming in droves. I think Joe Biden is going to deport more than he will because the United States policy is actually moving towards less getting in low, like from the 90s through like the aughts. The policy was really getting in a lot of low-skilled Mexicans and South Americans, taking over trade jobs, low-skilled jobs and trade jobs. So construction, like depending on where you are, it's mostly Mexicans. Like contracting is all Mexicans now. If you want to get your house painted, carpet installs, like anything like that is all just Mexicans, unless you find like really small crews or a really small company of guys that are still white that are doing that stuff. But they've been just taking over all of these trades. But that's done. And so, I mean, the joke is also landscaping and things like that. And the other thing they've done is they've taken out and doing movers, landscaping, these kind of just like low skill, like grug work, right? But when I was a kid, those jobs used to be done by college students. They had a company called College Pro, where on your summer off from college, you would go and do moving. You go and move people's houses.
Right.
And that was your job, and you would earn money to do that, or you could go do landscaping. That was when I was a kid. But now all of that stuff is done by Mexicans. College Pro doesn't exist anymore. And, you know, this is the thing. Like they already done that. So now what they're trying to do is they're trying to replace white people in white collar work. They want to get rid of white collar white people. They're moving in Indians. They want to expand the H-1B. They're not like, people don't like it because it's like a signal word for this process. But they're just gonna give everybody, they're giving all green cards and be like, now you're here permanently and you just work forever. You don't H-1B. You don't even need that. And so they want to replace whites in white collar work now too. And then they want to move everyone into like gig type economy work where you don't get
it's
regular hours.
It's very big here as well. You can apply via an app, etc. Let me just let in Murphy here for a while. I'm just gonna start with a question that maybe we perhaps should have started with, because I feel that there's a lot of confusion, there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of cope. People are overdosing on copium right now. I've many deaths these last couple of days. I've seen very tragic cases. Yeah. And Murphy, could you explain, because a lot of people maybe weren't even here in 2015, 2016, and they have latched on to the Trump train much later. And many people were checked in 2016, and then they checked out, and they followed Trump on Twitter for 4 years, and everything was going great because, look, he's the Twitter president for life after all. And then they came back in September of 2020 and like, yeah, let's go. and yeah. I feel that the things that we all realized perhaps in 2019, some earlier than that Trump really wasn't the guy that everyone thought he was.
Our guy.
Exactly. So how do we communicate what has happened to people who checked out and came back or are new to this and are angry and frustrated that we are saying that Trump is not your guy? He's not our president, not even on Twitter anymore, to be honest.
I mean, I think, who was it who was saying that Trump basically shifted his coalition for his reelection, right? So at the beginning, you know, there was a lot of implicit, he almost wasn't even in the driver's seat of it. Like he came down from the elevator and he made that speech, and it's like, okay, you know, that's how he started it. He's talking about Mexicans, they're not sending their best, and that's what he went with. But the coalition or the messaging changed. So you had this, like I saw in the was it New York Times, they interviewed this Mexican who was saying, I didn't like what Trump was saying in 2016, but then, I really like he's talking about pro-life, and he's like his messaging just subtly shifted. And so for the purpose of re-election, it was just, it feels like he really, he had this, the MAGA people, the MAGA-tards. It was just this different thing. It was more GOP, and it was just this different
like establishment centrist conservatism instead of national populism.
He had all these, and the people that he lost, it just didn't matter. So he ended up with more, he got the second most votes, right? Biden got the most in history by raw number.
But
I think the only thing that saved Trump getting that many votes this time around was the Black Lives Matter rioting. Without that, he would have lost probably much worse, and there wouldn't even be any hope of it. The Black Lives Matter rioting, because the Trump was so dead, like about 6 or 8 months ago. He was like no excitement for him. Nobody liked him. Totally. And now, granted, they were always going to ramp up the excitement for the election. We had been saying this, like, expect him to start saying base things, and he did say based things. But so there was a very mixed message because the campaign, certain elements of his campaign wanted to go full, let's do black and Latino and gay stuff and get those people in. And by the way, he has a huge amount of gay support, like a huge amount of gay support. And all these people,
YMCA.
First of all, he's
Maga.
doing that. And all of these people that are doing like all these grifters, all these Turning Point USA, they're all homosexuals. Like, I don't know about Charlie Kirk, but I mean, let's be honest. Does anybody really know about him? But like the rest of them are all gay. Like they're black or gay or women.
Wait. You mean to tell me that Lady Maga, Platinum Plan, and prison reform didn't appeal to steelworkers in Pittsburgh? Is that what you're saying?
Well,
Mike?
the thing is, I'm getting a lot of stuff back from our guys, and we got a lot of blue collar guys and guys that are in unions and talk to other guys and people that are in states like Kentucky or West Virginia. And they those states went really hard for Trump this time and last time, and talking to them and seeing what they're thinking. And a lot of them just don't know. They just don't know because if they're not extremely online, if they're not following online, then they think they see what the media is saying. They're like, oh, I freaking hate them. I hate the media. I know they hate me and I hate them. They're talking about him being an evil racist and shutting down the border and all this. And it's just not, no, it's true. And so what my guys are doing is just sort of talking to their guys on the, at work and asking them, like, what did Trump do for you? See if they can come up with something. One of my friends messaged me this morning. He's like, yeah, I don't want to, he's like, I feel almost bad blackpilling these guys is hard because, they feel like there's just nowhere to turn, and they're trying to, they're sending him like stuff like all these lists of Trump accomplishments, and then he always points out, he's like, every time you send me a list of Trump accomplishments, it has black unemployment and Latino unemployment like near the top. It has platinum plan for blacks. It's like, none of this is about you. And then the guy, they just, he's getting blank stares in response. But I'm like, what on some level, like I think tough love is required here, and so you can't, because you can't keep, even if it hurts, you can't keep letting your buddy get tricked and lied to. And if you see him about to open his wallet for any of this stop to steal, it's like, no, stop, put your money back in your pocket, keep it, bro. Don't give it to these freaking thieves, because they're not even fighting it. This is to pay off their debts.
Exactly. I mean, these LOL suits that they are pushing now.
LOL suits?
Yeah, the LOL suits.
That's pretty good. I don't know if you might not, that might have just been how you pronounce the word. I'm sorry.
No. It was intentional.
Okay, yeah, LOL suits.
I didn't make it up, but yeah, someone did. So these laws.
Yeah, it's probably a Biden fan made it up, to be honest. But
I mean, there's been
also
some pretty
the Biden
good
people, the alt-right people that went, I'm sorry, but like, I don't like to do the call outs or anything. I hate that stuff. But going out for Biden, you're going to look like an asshole, because Biden is going to suck so bad. And if you made a thing, you dance the jig of victory or whatever, like, you look like an asshole. Like, Biden sucks. Like, just tell people the truth. Like, I'm just telling people the truth. Like, I can only sugarcoat it so much. I understand why people feel like they were robbed. I understand. I can see it. I mean, they set this election. I mean, you can't have an election where you say, you can vote as early as you want. You can vote practically as late as you want. And we're going to be counting ballots all week and think like, yeah, they're not, and also you can't really look at what's going on. You can't tell me that in Philly, in places like Philly and Detroit and Atlanta, they're not shipping a truckload of ballots in the back door and just be like, oh, count them up. I just don't believe you. And I think that knowing that this has historically happened in these places, and yes, it's because they're black cities. I mean, they were trying to trick, like, Republicans get tripped up on that, because as soon as someone says, oh, you're saying that because they're black, they're like, no. I'm like, yeah, it's because they're black.
I mean, let's call them riggers. Let's just call them riggers. Yeah.
Yeah, but they're not even doing the rigging. Someone's doing the rigging.
Well, let's talk
doing the rigging.
Yeah, let's talk about the riggers, the rigger question. So Trump has had 4 years in the White House. He has, according to my research, done nothing about voter rolls for the last 4 years. He disbanded the Kobach Election Commission in 2018, I think. And he has taken no action to address millions of wrongly sent ballots in the months before the election. He was basically counter-signaling these absentee ballot procedures like mail voting, etc. And then he's very confused about the mail voting that does come is majorly heavily in support of Biden. So
yeah, and that was also a narrative that was set up by the media.
Yeah.
And Trump assisted with that when he told his people go vote in person on election day. And I was like, that you are setting yourself up. I mean, it felt like it was like the whole thing was a setup. And he was, I mean, I'm not saying that he was part of it. He might, but it like you could go real conspiratorial tinfoil and be like, he was literally part of the setup to steal the election from himself because it was all constructed to do that.
Yeah,
he tells his people go vote on election day. They vote. I'm like, yeah, but if you got mail-in ballots that can still come in up to 3 days afterwards, and they'll fake the postmark if they have to. And they're going to count all week, you're just going to get swamped. And that's what happened. And we were even saying, and the media even told you it was going to happen. They said, don't worry about election night. They were saying this, U.S. media, you might not have seen this in Sweden. They were saying in the U.S., don't fall for the red mirage. Trump will win on election night. It will appear that he has won. But don't worry, once those mail-in ballots come in and get counted, he's going to lose. And that's what happened.
Yeah, I saw
and they
it
were
on
telling
poll.
you ahead of time that was going to happen.
Yeah, I saw some threads on poll there. But when I've been extremely online these last couple of days, so it's not something I'm proud of. It just happened. So I wasn't enthusiastic.
It happens to all of us sometimes.
Yeah, it does. And I wasn't very enthusiastic at all. I went to bed early. I didn't follow the election during the night. But then anyway, when I woke up, there was all these graphs spinning around, and I looked at them and I felt them to be kind of
so many graphs to look at.
Yeah. I was looking at the graph unironically. And you know what I felt? I felt it was very fake and gay. I felt it was very astroturf. And then, so I started to become a little bit more skeptical towards the narrative of this being stolen. And then I saw other, I think James O'Keefe from Veritas did a pretty good job showing some of the more unsexy but probably true, the true fraud that was taking place. And
yeah, I mean, to say, the thing is, election fraud goes on, right?
Yeah.
And there's a few indicators that there probably was fraud. Well, one, now, also, it looks like they have now, like, they might have a split Senate. It might be 50-50, which would be interesting. I thought the Republicans were going to take it for a little while. But down ballot, the Republicans didn't do too badly. Down ballot from Trump. So, like, they're saying a lot of people split their vote with voting Republican and then voting for Biden. I don't think that really happens very much, right? So that right there is an indication that something's iffy. And just the fact that they, people are doing all this stuff. They're analyzing like the Benford analysis of the number. I'm like, all right, like I actually understand what you're saying there, but like that's no one else is gonna.
I have no idea.
I'm not even gonna go into that. Like I get
I don't
it,
understand
but like
it.
you can look that up yourself if you want. I'm not doing that because it's like even if you're right, like you can't do anything.
But
it's just
what I think was that some of these graphs. Here's my. I'm putting on my tinfoil kippa here. So my take was that the initial graphs were fake and gay, and then it was obfuscating the real fraud that was taking place. So after a while, more probable types of fraud came in that I could buy, because the other things I thought there was, and there is some reasonable explanation for these graphs that kind of jump up and down, etc. So I think that maybe there was an intention to astroturf the more fake kind of fraud to hide the real fraud as well, to turn people off from what is actually fraud. Because I've been saying this the whole time. I 100% believe. I've been following U.S. elections since at least the year 2000. We know what happened then with all the voting machines and Bush taking it to the court, etc. I mean, that was a steal as well. So I'm very much, the thing is that we are so.
I think George Bush won that freaking election, and Al Gore tried to steal it and failed.
Yeah,
but whatever.
Somebody's doing the rigging. For sure.
But either way, nobody can really feel confident about it, right?
Yeah, I guess at some point we are so checked out of the system that we just like MOG shrug. I mean, that's what we do. We just shrug and say, yeah, well, of course it's happening. So, but
yeah, I mean, I think you're going to look silly if you say there's no fraud. But I would say this. The fraud might not, I mean, it might have tipped it for Biden, but it might not have. He might have won it anyway. But also, like, the real thing is how many white men checked out. Like, a lot of white men came out and voted in 2016 and did not vote in 2020. Now, I know Trump got a huge vote tally overall. But remember, a lot of GOP people didn't vote in 2016 because they were disgusted with Trump, and so there was a lot of abstentions from like normie conservatives in 2016, and the vote totals for 2016 were low. Like, that wasn't a well-attended election. This one was hugely well-attended, but I'm curious how many white men came, and it's going to be a small number, but if it's like in the hundreds of thousands, that's enough. That could have won a couple of different states, because remember, the margin Trump had across the Midwest was like 180,000 votes across several different states.
Yeah, and he
won Pennsylvania by like 0.7%.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing, because I got some pushback when I said that, well, Trump lost the important white vote, and he was a candidate for national populism, he won, and then he turned centrist and he lost. And people were pushing back and said, well, there's a record turnout, and Trump's white vote in 2016 is the same as it was in 2020. So my guesstimation here is that he overall got more white votes, but he didn't get them. He didn't get enough white votes in the places where he needed to get them.
Yeah, I mean, he I don't know if he did get overall more white votes because he got the white vote shifted from plus, like, according to CNN, white male vote plus 31 for Trump, which would be like 81% in 2016, to plus to like, I think, plus 68 for Trump this time. So 13-point shift in the white male vote, which is big. And now, so as a percentage, he didn't get it. Now, you could argue potentially, well, more people voted. So if a lot of white male Democrats didn't want to vote for Clinton but didn't want to vote for Trump and stayed home, and now they came and voted, that could account for it. But I'm like, it could also, I think there are a significant, it's not huge, I mean huge, maybe 1 or 2% of white men who have voted one time in their lives.
Yeah,
I'm one of them.
Yeah,
I've only ever voted once, and so many people, and I know we have a fan base. I know
we can't be alone,
size
right?
of it.
We cannot be alone. We can't be alone. There should be a lot of people.
Well, the TRS fan base, I would say hardcore is like 20,000 and casual is like 50 to 100,000, somewhere like that, right? Right. And generally speaking, TRS hardcore fan base definitely didn't vote, and the casuals maybe did, maybe didn't. I don't know, but like our fan base is this group of men who have, if they voted one time in 2016, and that's it, and they've never voted again. So we're talking about like possibly even up to 100,000 people, and across multiple states. A lot of fans we have in the Midwest. It's a big area for us. So that's where it's important. You want to win that area because it's the only area that's kind of up for grabs. Everywhere else is kind of decided. You know, the Midwest is only where it's up for grabs. Midwest and Pennsylvania, it's up for grabs there. Rust Belt, that's up for grabs. That's where the fight is, and that's where you need whites. Whites make the difference there. It doesn't matter if you get 5% of blacks. So what? I mean, it adds to your total vote tally. He also significantly increased the Hispanic vote, but that's totally irrelevant in the Midwest. What do you care? You get 20% more Hispanics in California. Yeah. So what? I think New York. So what?
Florida.
I think
Florida. Yeah, but he wins. Generally, he wins Florida anyway, right? So arguably, it helped him win Florida, right? But again, so that could also account for this much higher vote total. But as a percentage, white men went down. And so if he had done those things to appeal to white men, he would have won. Because when you look at, you see those maps. So like, what if only white men were allowed to vote? It's just, the map's totally red. Like everywhere. It's red across the board. So if you, that just shows you, if you appeal to white men, you will win more. And particularly on these razor thin margins in states where the white vote makes the difference. So you can say with total justification that had Trump pivoted more more to whites, he would have won.
Exactly. Exactly. I think that's very important. And your colleague, Eric Stryker, he wrote on his website, National He said, in Wisconsin, which Joe Biden carried by 20,000 votes, Trump could have tried to inspire just a fraction of the 900,000 whites without college degrees in the state who are not registered to vote and won easily. So
there you go.
Yeah, exactly. The thing is that some people are coping and saying that, well, he did increase his share of votes and he had basically the same number of white votes in 2016 as he had in 2020. Therefore, your argument about him turning away white people is wrong. And that's their cope. And my answer to that is that he didn't do enough to inspire whites where it counted, and probably it was abandoned in some of these core states because of this. I mean, that's the thing. I mean,
if you're campaigning on, if you're one of the 900,000 without a college degree whites in Wisconsin, and not registered to vote without a college degree, you're not high on the social totem pole. You're not, right? And so, and on the economic totem pole either, you are probably pretty working class, paycheck to paycheck, living maybe in a trailer park or in a small house, or in a not so nice apartment or something like that. I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat the situation for whites in that part of the country. Maybe you live in a rural area, very isolated from things, but if Trump goes out there and he's not saying anything to you, and he's talking about $500 million for blacks. Platinum plan, was it 500 billion?
Billion, yeah.
$500 billion for black people.
Reparations.
Platinum, like, come on now. Like, what are you just gonna be like, fuck this guy?
Yeah, what if he had a platinum plan for the Rust Belt whites?
What if he had done a voter registration drive to get those people to register and vote? I mean, that's what Democrats do. They know they go out and they get every black and then like plus 30% more to register and then vote. They do that. That's what they do. They have a machine in place to do that. So the funny thing about that is, even if you get black votes, even if you get because black men don't like Kamala Harris, they like Trump because he's kind of a pimp, right? So you get black, because again, they're saying like, oh, Trump has a support like 20% of blacks under 30. Probably true. I wouldn't doubt it, particularly when rappers and stuff come out for him.
Little pimp.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Those, first of all, good luck getting them to actually vote. If they're like blacks that are like just like to signal that way. And second of all, the Democrats just have a machine, right? So even if you got like 5% of blacks, 10% of blacks to shift to you, they'll just make that up with fraud. Doesn't matter. It's totally irrelevant. The black vote goes to Democrats because the Democrats have a electoral machine in place in the black inner cities across this country to turn out the requisite number of votes they need.
Yeah,
they just do.
And
you can't ever beat it.
There's voting fraud on both sides, I think, because yes, the Democrats are doing that. What are the Republicans doing? They're doing gerrymandering, redrawing districts to get as much votes as possible. They are doing voter suppression. And I'm totally okay with that kind of.
Well, they do the gerrymandering to keep. Yeah. And here's the thing: Democrats don't fight against the gerrymandering. They make a big deal about it. They talk about it. Look, the Finkel thing that goes on. Democrats are just as much victim to it. White liberals are just as stupid in their own way as Trump tards, as MAGA tards. They are just as dumb. I read the stuff that's aimed at them. And they're like, these Republicans want nothing but racism and tax cuts for rich racists, and they gerrymander and do all this, but they don't do anything about it. Why? Because they need to keep it looking good. They need to keep the whole thing looking good, so they have to keep everything relatively 50-50. That's why I have been counter-signaling for a few years, and I've gotten a lot of pushback. The idea that the Republicans will never be able to win elections in a post-white America, it's not true. They'll figure it out. The system will figure it out, and Trump is already starting to do that, which is why they're all making a big deal of Latinos and black vote for Trump and whatever. And now we can kick whites to the curb. So, I could even see like Democrats, if anything, like pivoting to saying something about the white working class, not doing anything, but saying it. Well, the Republicans never will.
Yeah, but he basically did a reverse sailor strategy. Yeah. So let me, Murphy, jump in here. First of all, did you vote?
I did not. It's pretty useless where I'm from. Let's just put it that way. What I was going to say before was that one thing you heard the mainstream media saying over and over again. I was actually listening to ABC News as the election was going on. So they had like Chris Christie on there. They had Rahm Emanuel, and then there was two women.
Oh God!
And but actually, I will say this: they had a black woman on there, the Yvette something, head of Democrats for I don't know, I forget the title, but she actually said the most insightful thing that I heard from them for hours, which is that because the guy they had on pointing at the chart pointed to the county, I think it's Ozaukee County, where Kenosha is in Wisconsin, and Trump did much better this time around as a percent of the vote than he did last time because. In the theory that the black woman had was race. It was all these white voters or vote, whoever that were just pissed off about the riots. They were pissed off about what was going on with the looting and all this shit. Yeah. And that had a measurable effect. And the thing that George Stephanopoulos and his colleagues kept saying was. They were showing all these numbers and all these infographics about how COVID made the big difference with white voters in their 50s, 60s, 70s. And they kept going on about that. Like, I don't know, like they were trying to quantify it that way, but there was at the very least, like there was a measurable effect, especially in the counties where the riots and all this stuff was going on. Like there was a backlash,
Oh, absolutely. Without the riots, Trump would have been defeated very, very soundly. Yeah. And the funny thing is, he didn't do anything about them. I mean, he did nothing about them, which was actually a strategy. Yeah. I realized that actually he was not doing anything about them because they have, the polling that they put before the public is nonsense, right? There was nonsense. It was even worse this time. It's funny because they're saying, what if there's a polling error as big as 2016? This polling error, I don't know what the quantification of it was. It was awful. I mean, you had polls saying like 20% Biden win. Like, get the hell out of here. That's never going to happen. So it was just terrible. And it was also, in a way, almost intended to be so. But they have internal polling, these campaigns, where they actually do much more scientific polls. And so they know generally that it's not where the public, what the thing they're presenting to the public is. And so they knew. And on some level, the Democrats and the media knew as well that this eventually was helping Trump. And remember, there was a big race riot in Philly 2 weeks ago, or about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Where some black guy attacked a cop with a knife. He got shot. It was open and shut. I don't think anything bad's going to happen to those cops. It was literally open and shut. He had a knife. He ran at the cops. They shot him. Legal, totally fine. But there's a huge riot. And what they didn't do was mobilize Antifa. There wasn't much Antifa involved. It was blacks versus cops. And there was like a bunch of cops, like 30 cops went to the hospital in the riots, like fires. And the media just squashed it. They just didn't talk about it.
Wait, you're talking about undocumented shoppers, right? That's what we. that's a phrase we use here.
Well, that's the other thing. You get some of these more clever blacks who they want these riots. They don't give a shit about Black Lives Matter, but they just sit there in the Ryder truck, the U-Haul truck, like waiting for it to kick off, and like, we're gonna get rich.
Like
they're gonna just fill that thing up with whatever they can get, and that was happening too. And the Philly riots were very bad for like 2 days. It was like burning, looting. Cops were getting beaten. There was one incident where somebody ran into some cops with a truck, and they sent like 30 cops to the hospital. And I'm not sure. I think some blacks maybe got killed in the rioting. I don't know. But it just was totally squashed by the media. They just didn't talk about it. And Antifa didn't really get involved because they had been demobilized because they were helping win the election for Trump. I mean, there was serious anxiety that Antifa was going to deliver the election for Trump. So they didn't say much about the riots in Philly. Particularly because it's Philly, it's Pennsylvania, a battleground state, and it's right before the election. It could have really tipped the balance. But I think they probably did steal Pennsylvania. It wouldn't have mattered in the end because they could have given Trump those electoral votes and Biden would have still win ultimately when the count is finally in. But yeah,
I have this autistic list that I stole from Paul about policies that he implemented or didn't implement. Should I just read a few of them I mean, there's a lot, but let's
give
people a taste.
Let's do it because I'm kind of curious.
Yeah, okay. So 500 billion for undocumented shoppers. We already spoke about that. And then we have 600,000 new H-1B visas for 2020, and that's working permits of some sort, right? You were talking about that.
H-1B is basically, it's known as a way to get Indians through the door to do tech work. Typically, they're white-collar work. The claim is that they're skilled high-tech workers. I can tell you personally from my experience in the tech industry, they're not. They are low-skilled tech workers. They come in and they take entry-level jobs that do not require much technical expertise, and they just sit on them when, in fact, I would rather work, because I would rather work with white people generally, but when I was a senior programmer, towards the end of my career before it ended, as everyone knows how it ended, I wanted younger white kids either coming out of high school or college to train. And I wanted I would much rather have had them in these low skilled jobs like QA or entry level programming where I could train them and they could grow and learn to be in the field. But no, these jobs were taken up by like 50-year-old Indians. And it's bullshit and it should end. And Trump actually made a mistake in his first campaign where he said something about, he got some bad advice and said he was going to expand it. Then he came out and apologized because everybody revolted against him and said, what the hell is this? This is exactly the opposite of what we want. He apologized and said, no, you got it wrong. I'm going to limit them. And he never did. He never limited them.
This is for 2020, but pressing forward then, we have...
Pressing forward.
Red flag gun confiscations law, illegal immigration levels at its highest since Bush, internet censorship going into overdrive, failed to ban TikTok, couldn't end DACA, didn't replace and repeal Obamacare. This is interesting. He signed the Hispanic Prosperity Executive Order, giving spics more free shit and special privileges at the expense of whites. Could you tell us something about the Hispanic Prosperity?
I don't even know much about it, but that sounds about right.
There was also some dreamer suggestion that he put up on his website just a few days ago. Cucked to BLM. He couldn't pass the Race Act. He couldn't end birthright citizenship. He failed to invest $1 trillion to improve in national infrastructure. Couldn't pass the travel ban, at least not to all Muslim countries. Couldn't close the Wall Street special interest loopholes. Couldn't put price controls on prescriptions. I mean, it just goes on. Anti-BDS law gave Israel $38 billion. Farmers bill, amnesty bill, crime reform bill. No unclassified FISA. You get the picture.
No, it's a funny thing. What is Biden have to reverse? What I was saying is, I think the one thing is possibly the wall. The other thing is possibly like pulling out of the Paris Climate Accord. Other than that, I don't think there's anything that Biden can reverse.
Yeah, he's going to re-enter the Paris.
I'm sure he's going to triumphantly re-enter that, which is just freaking irrelevant. And he might make a show of pulling down some pieces of that bollard fencing, and that'll be that. And there's nothing else that he needs. That's sort of the funny thing. That's what I would say to guys that are like blue collar guys that you may or may not know, or well, you have to know them and talk to them. That you are talking to at work or in your family. Just be like, listen, like seriously, I get where you're at. I get where you're at emotionally. I totally understand because I've been there and I know what it feels like, and it feels awful. But don't let these people manipulate you when you're feeling bad to open your wallet for them, because they're just grifters. They're thieves. They're the lowest scum. They're literally low scum, and they're disgusting people. So don't open your wallets for them. But understand, your interests were not actually covered. And see if you can get them to tell you what Trump really did for them. And they won't be able to do it. All Trump gave people was good feelings because of yelling at the media and yelling at the people that they hate online. And that's also why the media class, the class of people, and also the sort of the liberal janissaries, the Janices, the blue check Janices, the liberals that are in the media, they hate him because of the way he talked about them. But it's purely just this, there's no policies. I mean, it's so funny reading these mainstream editorials about, and they say like Trump undid like norms of government. Like, what did he do? He didn't do anything. That's so hilarious. Like try and get a liberal to actually tell you what concrete actions that he did in government that were bad for the liberal agenda. They can't do it. It's funny. You can blackpill liberals too.
Yeah.
But just by asking them that. And then what they realize is you can even get, I don't think you'll ever be able to recruit people like that, but some people on like the Bernie left, you can, but they're more woke to the fact that this whole thing is a sham. Yeah. But you could at least talk to those people.
Murphy, you wanted to say something. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, like, I'm just thinking of, I've read all these articles in the past couple of years explaining how Trump has advanced white supremacy, and they have things that they can list. It's just hard to remember what they are because I'm reading this and it just makes me angry because I know that substantively Trump has done nothing to advance what I want. He's done nothing to prevent the white majority slipping, to appeal to his voters in a way that should matter. And yet at the same time, when you talk to, a lot of white Trump supporters, like I was talking to this guy a couple of weeks ago and I was trying to explain to him that Trump had not delivered. And yet he gave me like 20 different policy things, some were for the VA, some were, it was just this smattering of totally unrelated supposed things that Trump had done, but he was just acting like a cheerleader. He was acting as if he was Trump PR. There was nothing coherent. There was nothing, interconnected betwing these
people that
things.
Can do that. People that can do that are generally activist types. So like sometimes they're like a lot of these guys in the big trucks. A lot of them were doing that because they wanted to countersignal BLM and Antifa. They wanted to go out and make a statement of their own on the streets. But those things were being led by kind of like old Tea Party people who are activists at this point. And if in conversation, it's one thing if some guy finds something online and emails it to you or something, but if in a conversation with you, they have these talking points, they're an activist and you're never going to get them to budge on anything. But the funny thing is even the stuff they can list, it's non-substantive stuff. And it's stuff that there's no reason Democrat couldn't do it either, like stuff for the VA or whatever. It's not, which is important, but it's like, but I would need to look into that as well and see. So they will have things, and typically leftists will have things too, but none of it's consequential. Mostly what they have is divided the country, supported white supremacy, comments that he made at Charlottesville, attacks the media, undermines it will be like they don't have a specific policy. Like, so I would always just like cut off these kinds of things because they'll have a laundry list. But when you look at it, because I read the liberal media quite a bit actually to see what they're saying, and I've seen these laundry lists and they don't have a policy. They don't have policy. And the Muslim ban is the one thing he did get through once they kind of changed it a little bit. But the Muslim ban is actually something that primarily benefits Israel because it's primarily targeted. It's basically saying, like, we don't want anybody coming here from a country that is an enemy of Israel that would be able to send money back to that country. So it's actually a way to, it's actually more, I mean, look, again, I think it's fine. And it's good that it's funny that the principle is there, that the president can just say people from this country can't come in. But they ignored it if they wanted to, because they don't have to enforce it. And if they did enforce it, it was generally, and if you look at the countries that they put on the list, it was sort of it moved from being like a populist, keep out worker competition for Americans and keep out like a foreign race and religion to like keep out people from countries where Washington is trying to do regime change. Like that's where it shifted from. Because I think they put Venezuela on the list. I could be wrong about that.
But let's talk about.
I know they wouldn't have because they want Venezuelan dissidents to come here and like gay up their own country and stuff.
Well, the CIA had its own candidate, right, in the election in Venezuela as well, didn't they? Well, anyway, let's talk about the theory about Trump as a wrench in the machinery, the political machinery. That he because I hear this a lot from our guys, and I can of course sympathize with this. That he is delegitimizing the trust in institutions, and that's his biggest accomplishment. Is this wasn't this a good motivation to vote for him in 2020, that he keeps on delegitimizing the trust in all these institutions, in media, and he's hollowing out the idea of a functioning democracy, etc.? Wasn't this a good thing? Why shouldn't he be allowed to keep on doing this?
Well, one, like that, he did, like, that was done. Like, that's been done. Like, I'm not sure. Like, if I wouldn't have had it, like, if he had won, that would have been fine with me too. Like, we would have just kept on doing what we're doing. But I want to make, like, the policy wise, he wasn't doing anything in terms of this kind of stuff. Yes, he did help with that. I'm not going to, I agree. But I don't think it would have been enough reasons to go out and reward him with your vote as a pro-white activist, as a hardcore ideological pro-white activist. I do not think he deserves your vote. I think you should have the principled stand was to abstain and tell people why you were doing so and try and spread the word. And yes, the media is delegitimized. The legitimacy is not coming back, and we can do that too. That's the other thing. People always assume that we white activists are like not part of this whole thing, but go and read the mainstream media. They certainly think that we're part of this whole thing. They certainly preoccupy themselves with us. So we can continue to do that. Now that's our job. Trump helped. I'm not going to deny it. He helped. Calling the media the enemy of the people was fantastic. And that really got their asses in a bunch. And that's kind of one of the reasons they wanted to shuffle him off the stage. But their legitimacy isn't going to be resurrected now. You know? So I would say, yeah, sure, that's good. But we can do that now. We have to do that. We have to keep telling people and keep putting out the message. Yeah, the media, they're full of shit that's run by Jews. There's one thing Trump didn't say. He didn't say it was run by Jews.
He did.
He did not say this media is controlled by Jews. And the thing is, it is. And everybody knows it. Find me somebody who will say with a straight face the media isn't run by Jews. They're just uninformed. You know, the reason you're not supposed to say that is because
you're gonna get banned from every platform.
Yeah, why? Yeah. Well, don't say it in real life then. Just say it in real life.
Murphy, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, if you're Sacha Baron Cohen, you can say it as long as you say it ironically on a late night talk show.
Yeah, and as long as you're saying it in order to, well, one, you could say it ironically to a very friendly audience and laugh about how great it is. Or you can do the Sacha Baron Cohen act where you put anti-Semitic words and then you put them in the mouth of a character that is like just a low status, disgusting character that everyone is supposed to kind of laugh at and point fingers at and then hate. Or you make white people, like rural and working class white people, the butt of all your jokes in a really mean and nasty way. Which is what he does. I freaking hate that guy, and I hate his humor, and it's the most anti-white, disgusting, unfunny shit.
You know, I did a show about that movie, the sequel, and I had to pause. I had to sit through 6 or 7 sittings just to get through it because I got violently mad, to be honest.
Yes,
that's why really, it's one of the most frustrating movies I've seen that I can recall. I mean, it's so fucking obvious exactly what he's doing every minute. All the shots, how he's editing things, how he's using... I mean, Americans are very friendly towards strangers in a way. I mean, they are.
Well, it's amazing how nice people... And this is what I took from the first movie.
To him. They're nice to
him. I think the second movie, from what I've heard, is worse than the first one in this. But even when I saw the first one, I remember people I knew at work and such, and we're all laughing about it. And I was like, you know, this guy's and this was before I kind of got the whole shot. I kind of saw what he was doing even then, but I wasn't totally where I am now on it. And I was like, you know what, this guy is just making people that are real nice and polite to him, and he's just treating them like shit. Like, he's actually a real asshole. And that would all the people I would talk to at work and such that would be laughing about it. They would all then they would shut up and look at their desk or something or their feet because it's cause it just ruined the party by saying that. But I was like, dude, why is this guy so look, goes to this dinner party. These people are remarkably polite and nice and tolerant of him. And it's not until he brings out a bag of shit from the bathroom and says, I'm calling and he makes a point of saying a black prostitute. I'm calling a black prostitute. And then they call the police. And they try to make it say, see, these white people are nice and polite until you bring up the idea of bringing a black to the party. It's like, no, it's because she's a black. He brings a bag of shit out of the bathroom and says I'm calling a black prostitute. And I'm like, okay, call the police.
Okay, I will have to pivot back to the topic. So no, it's good. I wished I had you on my episode when I did it. But let's talk about the lawsuits. So I have what I think is a hot take under.
Okay.
I don't know why I put the title, The Revolution Will Not Be Twitterized. But anyways, so people are talking about these lawsuits. One lawsuit in Maricopa County was thrown out today.
Maricopa?
Yeah, Maricopa, yeah. I mean, it all makes sense, doesn't it? I mean, this is...
Yeah, no, that's the biggest county in Arizona, but it's still funny.
I mean, that's an alternative show title, by the way.
Yeah.
Live from Maricopa County. So
we're gonna be doing TDS from there tomorrow.
Steal it. I would be honored. But anyhow, so all these lawsuits, if one of them reaches the Supreme Court, here's what I think can happen. I think they will throw it out. Why? Because they will gain legitimacy, and the Democrats won't stack the court. So everyone wins. They get to keep their seats. They get to keep their influence and power. They say, fuck you to Trump. We don't need you anymore. The Democrats are happy. It actually, well, at least half of the population will gain some trust in the Supreme Court, which has had 3 Trump appointees during these 4 years. So there's been a lot of talk about expanding the court, etc. It hasn't been done since the 1800s or so. So I don't know. That's a take. I'm leaving it out there for you to possibly.
They kept saying the whole over the past over the 3 days following Tuesday night. They kept saying, "Oh, John Roberts is really not happy." Right? They kept saying John Roberts is really hoping that this doesn't. Yeah. Anyway, I don't have a take on that, but
or that it doesn't get to the court, because remember, John Roberts. Yeah. Well, here's the thing with the Supreme Court. One thing they'll always list on the Trump accomplishments is the Supreme Court. But again, it's sort of like, okay, so Trump put 3 pro big business Zionists on the court. Because that's what these people are. Because they're all of them are bad on immigration issues. I mean, which is, of course, they are. They're all Federalist Society appointees.
Heritage Foundation.
So, yeah. Well, Heritage Foundation does a lot of the staffing. But
okay.
The Federalist Society are the people that recommend.
Okay, yeah. Sorry. Okay, great. That's great.
But it's the same thing. It's basically the same thing, right? There's these institutional conservative groups who were anti-Trump in 2016 and then ended up staffing his whole administration in the Supreme Court. But in any case, so these are the same judges if Jeb Bush had won the election. So it's not really a particular Trump thing, because these are just the judges that any Republican would have nominated. Also, the Democrats probably are. I mean, here's the thing. It looks like we got 50 Democrats, I think, in the Senate, and then there's 2 very close elections that might go to a runoff. And I don't think the Democrats want a majority in the Senate. I actually hope that they get it. And the reason I hope that they get it is because what was so delegitimizing to Trump, and to the Republican Party, was the fact that they had everything in 2016. They had the presidency, the House, and the Senate, and they didn't do anything. And so I want the Democrats to be in a position of having presidency, House, and Senate, and not doing anything.
Right.
And I want them to have to figure out how to work that. And what the Republicans did was they created a phony rivalry between Paul Ryan and President Trump. And they stage acted that. They played that out on the stage of the media until it was 2018. Paul Ryan resigns. My job here is done, and that was that. They lost the House, and then Trump now he has the excuse to not do anything. He doesn't need Paul Ryan anymore. So that was, and I think the Democrats are going to have to do that too. As far as the court, John Roberts was a conservative. He was supposedly a conservative when he was put in place by I believe Bush. So he was nominated and confirmed under the Bush presidency, and he was considered to be a conservative. And now he then was considered to be a moderate as the court shifted a little bit to the nominally to the right. Then he's considered to be now he's just considered a liberal. And they're going to have to move, I think, probably like Neil Gorsuch or maybe Kavanaugh into the position of moderate. And so the court already did hear one of these lawsuits in Pennsylvania, but all they gave Trump was that all ballots received after Election Day have to be segregated pending another court challenge. But I think if these are decided at the state Supreme Court level, which will be the first place they'll be decided in the states, the Supreme Court will not hear them. And they'll say, like, we can't override the decisions of the states, and this is hyper politicized, and you know, we have to be a body above this political stuff and blah 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 blah. So yeah, I agree with you. I don't think they're going to reach the Supreme Court.
Okay, so the 87-dimensional Avengers Civil War Demon Rats take is that the Democrats should just get everything and get exposed for the fraud that they are.
Yeah, well, what it will do is it will create massive infighting in the left, because just as you saw, look, I mean, let's be honest, Trump getting empowered created a lot of infighting in the right. It did. I mean, infighting between the Trump faction and the Paul Ryan faction, like never Trumpers and Trumpers, and even infighting down to the ranks of white nationalists who were pro-Trump and anti-Trump, or not sufficiently pro-Trump, or not sufficiently anti-Trump, or whatever, right? And that's all going to end. We're going to be able to have unity. and the Democrats and the left is going to be viciously infighting, particularly if they get a Senate, because there will be rabid leftists who'll be like, why? Well, first of all, they're going to have to explain to the whole country how come they're not doing a healthcare package. Then they're not going to. They're going to have to explain to the whole country how come they're not putting back in place COVID unemployment. They're going to have to explain to the whole country how they're not doing national minimum wage. They're going to have to explain to the entire country why these progressive economic reforms, which the majority of people want, majority of people are going to want that national minimum wage. They're going to want COVID unemployment benefits back, and they're going to want a national health plan, right? They're going to have to explain why they're not doing any of that if they get the Senate. And then for the rabid people on the left, they want even more stuff. They want Green New Deal and all this other crap, and they're just going to create. They're going to have to develop an infighting narrative, and they're going to have to just have, like, you know, infighting there, which I think will be good.
Yeah, well, I guess California is a good example of a very Democrat-run state that doesn't have some sort of state healthcare option.
And it's not only that; it's that California is super capitalist. It's a super neoliberal state. Sure, it totally puts lie to the idea that if you get a whole bunch of Hispanics voting Democrat, you're going to get socialism. You're not. What you get is hyper liberalism. That's why Jews are engineering the population the way they are. That's why they want to create a system where you don't have any group in the majority, and you have racial strife between various groups, and then, you know, you have a bunch of liberal elites like sitting on top of all of it. Because what do? It's the whole economy is Silicon Valley based. It's all gig economy stuff. And they have voted down the extra benefits for people time and time again. It's a super neoliberal state. They're very liberal socially, like the gay, trans, people of color crap, like trans people of color representation on every corporate board. But that doesn't do anything for the working class. No. Doesn't do anything for workers. And so the California is the best example that you're not going to get socialism. Yeah. You're not going to get anything for the workers in this country. It's all geared towards more power for big business and more power for social, racial, sexual minorities and that kind of stuff. That's the vision of America's future. It's neoliberal hell. It's not socialism. Yeah, that would be an improvement.
Neoliberal hell world 2020. You're living it.
There was a great documentary I saw. I mean, great in the in how it was produced. I mean, I didn't love it, but there was a line from that documentary. There was this guy saying, in San Francisco, everyone's Democrats, right? But he says you have the progressive Democrats, which are mostly white, sort of middle to upper middle class liberals, and then you have more like Latino types that are more to the center on a lot of things. And so you have some of these fights, especially when it comes to so the wealthier areas denying like low-income housing in their neighborhoods, and they have a litany of excuses for why they don't want them there. So you have this irony in other states like Massachusetts and New York, where you'll have people with they'll have like signs on their lawn that say Black Lives Matter, hate has no hope here, but then they'll have another sign that opposes the local campaign to get low-income housing. And so, one way or another, they'll find an excuse to be able to say, we don't want these people here. And it'll, they'll hit all the right boxes for what they're supposed to say. But that's the kind of fight that you're going to have in neoliberal America. And one of the takes that I heard within the past few months is that, once it becomes impossible for the GOP to win elections based on the coalitions that they've had in the past, you'll just have targeted advertising. You'll just have the elite find a way to balance things out, so they don't, they don't need to make excuses for having to do anything. And the other thing was, one explanation I heard from leftists recently was that when they thought the GOP was going to keep their majority, you had a bump in the stock market because gridlock is great for business. When you have one party, especially the Democrats, in control of the Congress and the presidency, that's when they start to get nervous.
No, they don't. Well, Wall Street gets nervous when the Wall Street have more than half of them are Democrats themselves. They're getting nervous. Joe Biden is going to put Larry Fink as his Treasury Secretary, most likely. They're not nervous. I mean, these people, any leftist that says this has to really, they need a wake up call as much as any MAGA-tard. Like, these people need a wake up call too. All the Bernie bros, I see the Bernie bros at least now are starting to turn into Bernie irony bros, where they're checking out and they're taking the grill pill and they're like, forget this, man. Like, we can't even do anything here. But so they're kind of getting it, but they're not interested. Kind of, they have their own issues where they're kind of just checking out. But like dedicated left, what they have done is replace the dedicated left with racial and sexual minority activism, with gay and anti-white activism. They have replaced any activism in favor of the working class, in favor of workers' rights, in favor of benefits, or any kind of pushback on just out of control neoliberal capitalism has been completely destroyed. And it's all racial, sexual minority stuff. And that's the radical left now. It's the cancel culture and the SJWs and all that stuff. So that's where they want the activism on the left to be, because they're happy to give those people everything they want. Yeah. And that's the one danger. That's the one area where Biden will probably make progress. Is Biden's probably going to he's going to restart this anti-white racial training, which is in a way, good for white nationalism, because it creates more white nationalists, because it makes white people get the picture, because you can't come out of that unless you're a total, low T soy boy cuck, or you're trying to advance yourself, despite your white skin, you want to advance in the business world or something. But if you're an average worker, even me, who was, I guess you could say, worked a white collar job, even though I was writing software, so that's sort of a production kind of a job. If I was to go into one of these things, I would be like, are you fucking kidding me? I almost, like, when I was still working, like, I almost like wish a nigga would put me in one of those racial training seminars, because I would have I probably would have lost my job, but it would have been worth it for me. I would have been like, you know what? I'm willing to do that. Like, not everybody is, and I understand that completely. I completely understand that, but I would have been happy. Like, yeah, you're going to fire me at the end of today, and that's going to be worth it, because I'm going to wreck this whole fucking thing. But
crashing the plane. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see it.
Yeah, survivors.
I mean,
like,
we've met a few times. I can vouch that Mike would actually do this. This is not hyperbole. Yeah. Or is it hyperbole? Yeah. Hyperbole? Whatever.
Yeah. It's hyperbole. Yeah. Some people say hyperbole, which is pretty funny.
I heard some. I think Jazz said it on the latest FTN. But anyways, I think we have to. I just want to say to any leftists listening, take the Compound pill. It's fun. It's fun. I mean, it's not good. It's not constructive, but it's fun. Anyways, I think we have to kind of end it soon. So we have to, let's try to look forward to what's coming. And here's the thing. Copium Wars can lead to Ropium Wars. Now, We don't want it to lead to Opium Wars. We want it to lead to Copium Wars. So,
yes.
Mike, way forward. Explain.
Well, I think that I actually think that this outcome, well, again, we have to work with whatever the outcome is, but I think that there's a lot of opportunities in this outcome. We can explain to people, we get that you put your hopes in Trump, and we understand why, and we totally sympathize with that. And I was there with you in 2016. I was a huge Trump fan. We were together celebrating Trump's victory in 2016. You and I were. And it was a lot of fun, and it felt like great days were ahead, and these hopes were dashed on the rocks, and we were expecting actual policies. We were expecting cuts in immigration. We all know what we were expecting. And so I would say to whites that did have hopes in Trump, what is it that you want? And is that something that can be gotten through the current system as it is structured right now, where it seems to be set up as a big show? And it's very easy, actually. To be honest, right now is when people are going to be receptive to that. So I think right now is when we should be, instead of pandering, as people are saying, pandering to vote count, stop the steal, let's get Trump back in. QAnon people are doing Trump is going to be more effective out of office. This is what QAnon people are saying now.
God bless them.
Instead of that, say, no, listen. The system is crooked. The system is set up to put this show on for you every 4 years and go back to business as usual. That's why I don't think the Biden thing is going to lead to everybody getting banned. I think it's going to be just be the same. I think things are going to be roughly the same, except that things may be gayer in their presentation. But we have a good way to reach people because people were given a taste of what it should feel like. Like, don't we want that feeling back for real? And the only way we can do it is solidarity as whites. It's the only way. There's no shortcuts. And so I think the field right now is ripe for that message. And I know guys that are in the TRS network, guys that are in some of the pool parties and some of the active types, ideological types around the country are doing that at their jobs right now. They're doing that with some people in their family or their buddies and stuff like that. So I think that's great. And there's going to be a lot of people that won't be receptive to it. So you can't get blackpilled by that either. But if we can develop, the more people we can develop, the more credible we'll be as a force and the stronger we'll be. And so we just have to build on that. And I think right now there's a ripe ground for recruiting people. And I think that's what we should be doing. So I do think there's a lot of hope.
Murphy, any hopium for the listeners?
Nope, take the black pill.
Wow.
I give up.
Okay, that's the ropium take then. I guess that's fine.
Yeah, no, I was just. I mean, I'm kind of joking, but I was telling because I have a British friend, and he was kind of. I was telling him recently, you don't like It doesn't sound like you like England, but you love England. You would die for it, and I kind of have the opposite opinion. I'm like, I like America, but I love it for what it should have been, not for what it is. So,
Mike, where can people find you if they liked these hopium takes of yours?
Yeah, find us at therightstuff.biz and nationaljusticeparty.com. We are going to be having a National Justice Party meeting next weekend. I can't really invite any new people. It's all booked up. All the spaces are filled, but expect some hot propaganda coming out of that. We're going to have speeches and some videos coming out of that event that should give some more hopium, so you'll be able to see not only do we have these opinions, but there's a lot of other white people that have them. And so we are going to have that event, and that should be good. So check us out there and at therightstuff.biz for the podcasts. And yeah. Now, if you're in the TRS network, if you're contacted about the event next weekend, and you listen to this, you're good. Definitely come. But I'm just saying, we can't be. We're full, so no people can come in off the streets or anything like that at this point. So yeah. But it's going to be good. And just if you want to check out, see what kinds of stuff goes on at these events, then just watch for the videos that are going to be coming out very soon after next weekend.
Okay, on behalf of me and all the listeners, thank you both very much.
Yeah, thanks a lot.